Welcome to Inside Arvada, the City of Arvada's podcast, where we bring you conversations with the people who make Arvada a thriving community. Hear stories about the past, present, and future of Arvada through the lens of the city team members who help make it all happen. Explore the complex topics impacting our community. From the roads you drive, to the water you drink, the parks where you play, to what your neighbors think. Join us as we take you inside Arvada. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the city's official podcast, Inside Arvada. We are really excited for this week's guest. We have Maureen Phair with the Arvada Urban Renewal Authority on with us. Mo has been with AURA, the Arvada Urban Renewal Authority, for almost 22 years now, and she started all the way back in 2002. I was just a wee one back then, and she started as a project manager, and then she moved into becoming the deputy director with AURA, and then now serves as the executive director and has been doing that for the last 14 years. Really great to have her on. She just has such a wealth of knowledge that she's going to share with us before she retires here soon. And so, as always, I'm joined today by my co-host, Sean. Hey, Sean.
Hi, Katie. I always love having guests on like Mo who have been with the city or their organization for as long as she has, more than 2 decades, because she's just such a wealth of knowledge, as you mentioned. And it was great to learn about AURA and like all the different projects that they've done, and we'll link it in the show notes, but you got to check out some of these before and after of the projects that they've done to notice the difference that AURA can have around the community. And so with that, we'll turn it over to our interview.
Hi, Mo. Thanks for joining us today. So to get us started, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do with AURA.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here. I am the executive director of the Arvada Urban Renewal Authority. I've been here for almost 22 years. I've been the executive director for 14.
Great being here. What exactly is AURA?
So AURA is a separate entity from the city. We are not a department of the city, and we are structured through the state. There's a state statute that really dictates how we work, and we have one mission really, and one mission only, and it is to remediate blight. And we remediate blight in very specific designated areas in the town.
And so how are those areas of town determined? I mean, is it just like, hey, this area needs some revitalization, let's go do some projects over here? How do you determine where
kind of in a way. So there's a variety of ways that an area could be established. First of all, someone has been complaining that this area is run down and needs to be fixed up. And that could come either from the constituents or city council or even us. And when we decide that this area really does need to be fixed up, we have to go through the state statute and find a predominance of blight in the area. We have to do an urban renewal plan, which basically says here's the land and here's kind of our plan on how to revitalize it, and it also has very specific boundaries. So we would say inside this area is where we're going to work, it's very defined. And then we would take that to city council, and city council would look at that plan and look at the findings of blight and say, yes, urban renewal, we would like you to go in there and see if you can revitalize it. And we would then they would adopt the plan, and we would then have 25 years in order to remediate the blight.
And you mentioned quickly there that this comes out of kind of a state statute that exists that can be kind of applied locally anywhere in the state. And city council essentially said some decades ago, we want to have an urban renewal district authority. And then you look at a set of criteria that kind of define blight. Is that all right?
Exactly. Yes. Okay. There's 11 categories of blight, and we have to find a predominance of 4. And urban renewal, Arvada put this on on election back in 1980, and they said, "City, would you guys like to have an urban renewal authority?" And the voters said yes. And so since then, we have had 6 urban renewal districts. The first one started in 1981. and expired 25 years later in 2005. And since then, we have an additional 5 urban renewal areas.
What was that first one?
The first one was, we named them. The first one was called City Center, and most people will be very familiar with this. It is off of I-70 by the Costco. So those were urban renewal projects. We helped develop and bring into town the Costco, Sam's Club, Home Depot, Lowe's. That big power sounder down there is because of urban renewal. We were able to then go into Old Town and revitalize Old Town. That's the same urban renewal area. We did the streetscapes on Old Wadsworth and Grandview. We did the Old Town Square. We did a few new buildings where Homegrown is, and the
Smoking
Fins. Yep. And also where the Gene Center is, kind of catty corner from the library. We did a bunch of facade grants, which really restored a lot of those old historic buildings back to their grandeur. And we also did the Water Tower Village, which is about 26 acres of multifamily. And we restored the water tower. So the water tower was actually kind of a fun project. It used to be kind of a rusted old kind of gray thing with a big chain link fence with barbed wire on top of it, and we restored it. And what was interesting about that is it used to be filled with water. It's no longer active, but when you take the water out, it's no longer heavy enough, and so it could blow over. So we had to do all kinds of stuff to stabilize it, and we painted it and took down that fence and created that beautiful park underneath it. And people have actually gotten married under.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of a fun one.
Yeah,
That
now
is
it's
fun.
like the icon of Arvada.
Yeah,
A lot of our
yep.
materials and marketing and stuff, it's that water tower. I didn't realize that Aura had such an important part in revitalizing it and making it such a unique part of Arvada. And so these districts can be defined as big or small as maybe is needed, right? So it sounds
Yep.
like this Old Town one is like pretty big, but I know you have some that are much smaller.
Yeah, our smallest one is only 3 acres, and that is where the Hilton Garden Inn is. At the time, Arvada was, I think, one of the biggest cities that did not have a hotel. And we worked, God, for years and years trying to bring a hotel to Arvada. And we would get close, and the hotel would go to try and get some bank lending. And the banks would be like, well, give us some comps. How are the other hotels doing? We're like, well, we don't have any other hotels. And they're like, well, I don't think we want to loan to you. So it was really a challenge to get that first one done. And we always heard that once we got the first one done, that the other ones would come. And so you guys know we just opened up our second one, which is the Marriott, the Residence Inn. And that developer is doing so well, he's looking for a third. And, hotels like to cluster. So we're looking to see if there's a location to put a third. But now that we got the first one, the rest will come.
Yeah, that's cool. And the location just makes a lot of sense with the G line being there now.
Right.
And you can get to downtown really easily. You can do things right here in Old Town and right on 70 even too, like if you're going up to the mountains or something.
And if you talk to the merchants in Old Town, we built a whole bunch of residential in and around the Old Town area. But when you talk to those merchants, what really has made a difference for them is having the hotels there, because the hotels are the ones that come up and eat, drink, and shop.
Right.
And so they are really grateful for those.
That makes sense. So you mentioned a little bit about the history of Aura starting with a citizen vote. What is kind of Aura's relationship to the city? How does that work today? And
Well, we
time?
have an intergovernmental agreement with the city. As I said, we are a separate entity. I am not a city employee. I am a contract worker for the Aura board. I have an annual contract. But in our IGA, we do have an agreement that we can use certain departments of the city. So like we can use HR to do our benefits and our use payroll and IT, but we're billed for those services, and we pay the city on a monthly basis to be allowed to use those. And so we kind of look and act a little bit like a department, but we are quite separate.
Yeah, I think that was definitely a misconception I had because, it's arvada.org email and things like that. And
Right,
so
yeah.
that's an easy misconception for us that kind of work more closely with you from time to time, at least, to recognize that it's completely separately funded and completely separately run. And you mentioned that you all have a board. So I
Right,
think
we have a
that's just good
7-member
to-
board, and we always have either the mayor or a city council person on our board. And right now, Mayor Simpson is on our board.
And you're a small but mighty team, right? There's like only you and one other?
Yep, right, yeah. Yeah, and our annual budget this year is 50 million, and we can talk a little bit more about how we get that money.
Yeah, that's a good segue.
Yeah.
We wanted to ask about the funding structure. It's kind of complicated. We've had a little bit of conversation about it before this and had a hard time fully understanding it. So can you do your best to help explain?
Right. So we get no money from the city. So we are self-funded. No other entity gives us money. So how it works is, let's say that you're taking an area that needed to be revitalized. So let's take an example of the Super Target. You know where the Super Target is off of Kipling?
Sure. Yep.
That used to be the Ridge Home hospital, and it was like a mental hospital for children. And it had closed 20 years before urban renewal came about. And it sat there for 20 years, and it had, I don't know, something like 60 buildings, and those buildings had been abandoned, and they were literally falling down. They were filled with graffiti. There was a lot of kind of illicit activities going on in there. But the private sector was not interested in going in there and redeveloping that because it was way too complicated for them to go in, because they would have to buy the property, they would have to remediate all the asbestos and all the environmental contamination, they'd have to demo those buildings. There's no infrastructure, they'd have to do everything new. And so it was just cost prohibitive for anyone to go in there. So that kind of decaying campus sat there for all those years until urban renewal created an urban renewal district there. And so that property that I just described was sitting there vacant, and it wasn't really producing anything. It wasn't producing any property tax, any sales tax, anything. It was just kind of this derelict property. So when we go in and create an urban renewal area, we say, all right, we're going to start this in 2003, which is what we did. So we'll look back and say in 2004, or 2002, sorry. In 2002, what did that area produce as far as property tax, and what did it produce as far as sales tax? And that becomes the base. So if you are a taxing entity, you get what you got in that prior year. So then the idea is that urban renewal come in, and we'll start working to try and fix that up. And if that area starts producing more property tax than the year before, that incremental increase in property tax comes to urban renewal. We then reinvest that money into that project. So let's look at the target. So that thing did not produce anything, and that original project has the Super Target. There's all that inline space, and then those are the pad sites. Also in that old hospital was the land to the north. So there's 2 apartment complexes that were created both north and south of the G line. And one has like 300 units, the other one has just under 300. So all that is new investment in an area that didn't produce anything. So now the property tax is very high, and the sales tax is very high because, Target does well, and all those restaurants and everything. Mm-hmm. So all that goes above what was generated before. So we're able to take that money and make that developer whole. So we are able to pay for the environmental cleanup, the demolition, all the new infrastructure, the streets, everything that happened. And the way they did that is there were bonds that were floated, and our TIF money, that tax increment above the base, went to pay those bonds that paid for all that public improvements. So that's how that project was done. We reimbursed the developer for all those expenses through that bond.
Yeah,
Okay.
you should encourage our listeners to go onto Aura's website because there's some before and after photos.
Yeah, they're
And
pretty incredible.
The before
Yeah.
photos, you can't even recognize that area of town, and now it's obviously flourishing with the Target and,
Right.
and the
It's
residential
stunning.
and all that. Yeah, it's same with the Old Town residential area. As you see some of those pictures of before the work that was done, and it's unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite impressive to see that and really see the in the long run see that economic value of what's been invested in, because when you're talking about some of these areas, sometimes I think change, growth, those can be hard to live through, and at the beginning of a project in particular, it can feel really tough and it can be a hard sell for people, I think. And so to then see the benefit, right, the long-term benefit of some of that is really, I think, a valuable way to help explain kind of the short-term pain, long-term gain, I guess, of
Right,
all
yeah.
of it. Yeah, so pretty cool.
So then some of this tax increment funding that you get from Target then also helps fund the next project as well, too?
Right. So depending on the need of the project, how much money the project's going to generate and how much the public improvements cost in order to get the project done, we'll either give a portion, 100%, or a portion, or, it depends on the project. That the project where the target is, we gave them 60% of the sales and property tax in order to pay those bonds. So that additional 40% came to us. And we were able to use that 40% to go up into the 3 shopping centers off of Ralston and Independence. That's where the Kmart, the King Soopers, the Safeway, they're on the north side, and then there's stuff on the south side. And we were able to go in there and redevelop that area. So that area had 68 acres, 3 shopping centers, only 1 housing unit in that entire area. And that retail got really tired. Eventually the Safeway went dark and the Kmart went dark, and there just wasn't a whole lot going on there, and it really was getting run down. And now what we've tried to do is not have it be just one type of use where it was all commercial. We went in and are making it more of a mixed use. So there's a lot of apartments and townhomes and parks. We built the Garrison Garden Paseo, which, if you haven't been to it, is absolutely amazing. Really proud of that. Also, there wasn't hardly any trees over there. The old way that strip centers did their parking lots is it was just a sea of asphalt. They didn't have the landscape islands. We didn't have the streetscape with the trees lining it. And so we're going back and we're putting in all that, all those trees, the streetscape, the kind of pocket parks, and really making it a true mixed use area. And I think one of the crowning jewels of the whole thing that most people are excited about is that we're working with a developer to build a beer garden right at the corner of Garrison and Ralston, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And in front of the beer garden is a large, big public plaza that people can use. They don't have to go to the beer garden. They can just go in there and, sit and enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm excited for that area. That's really going to activate that space, and just the proximity to Ralston Central Park too, I think, is already a really popular park, and so it just adds to that whole area quite a bit.
Right, and there's that creek that runs behind there, Ralston
Yeah.
Creek, and the old shopping center turned its back to it, and the Safeway turned its back to it. It's this beautiful asset. So everything that we're doing over there now is required to face the street. So the townhomes along there need to face the street. We're trying to connect back to the neighborhood to be able to make it easy for the neighborhood to come in, to shop, to use the trails, all that. And we actually renamed the area. It never really had a brand. It never had a name. So we're calling it Ralston Creek to really highlight that beautiful asset of the creek. And if you go over there, you'll see that there's all the signage and everything speaks to the creek.
Yeah, that construction is happening fast. I feel like every time I drive by there, it looks like some bunch of progress has been made. And so when is some of the mainly people want to know about the beer garden? I do personally.
Yeah.
When is that
Okay.
going to
The
be
beer
finished?
garden's going to open up later this spring.
Okay.
So let's say May, June.
Yeah. Very cool. Because I remember when I first moved to Arvada, I biked into Ralston Central with my son, and then from there, if you don't continue on the trail and you try to go into that shopping center, it was like this dilapidated parking lot, and that was only a few years ago. And so to see the transformation that's happening right now is really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, even like getting from the trail to like Corvus Coffee or like any of those little things is like really tricky.
Yep.
And this will make it really smooth and really connect all of those businesses. So that's exciting as someone who doesn't live far from there.
It's great.
Yeah, it's a great area to, now I can take my dog to the beer garden. So
Yeah.
okay, so we've already really been talking about this, but you've been with Aura 22 years. We've already talked about some of like the big impacts and major projects, but there's also like you have a lot of like data and things that back up kind of how this has made a difference in our local economy and kind of what the effect for Arvada has been. Can you talk a little bit more about that and any particular kind of projects or things you want to highlight that have had a big influence and,
Sure.
toot your own horn a little bit is what I'm
Yeah.
asking.
Okay, well, I did write down some notes so I can speak to these. So in my almost 22 years here, this is what urban renewal has accomplished. So we have created 2,765 housing units just in the southeast corner of Arvada alone. And that makes a big difference because we're having an issue with affordable housing. Of that, I think like 125 of those units is affordable. There's a lot of those that are townhomes as well. But it's important to create a variety of housing types. And Arvada really has a lot of single-family homes, and we needed to create more of a variety. So we've got apartments, we've got townhomes, and that makes it more accessible for the working people. Also, we have put $23 million into parks and streetscapes. We've created 523,000 square feet of new commercial. And altogether, what we do is our money really kind of leverages the private sector. And so the private sector during that 22 years in these specific project areas has invested just under $1 billion in the Southeast Arvada alone.
Wow. And I think it's just really reiterating that these are areas that couldn't have done that work. That nearly $1 billion wouldn't have revitalized some of these areas that I would argue are like my favorite places to go. Maybe soon will be new favorite places to go. So that's quite an impressive impact.
Thank you.
One question we always like to ask every guest as well is kind of as we get toward the end of the interview is like what folks should know about the work you do or clearing up some of the misconceptions. So what are some of those things that maybe you get questions a lot about or you see people or hear people talking about and you're like, no, that's not quite right. This is actually the truth.
Right. So there's a lot of people that say that you're giving government money to these rich developers. And I want to make sure that people are clear that this is not existing money. This is not money that is sitting in any general fund. That's not money that is there. So the money that we use is the money that the developers generate by their development. So if the development didn't happen, that money would not have been generated. So we use their money to pay for the public improvements that are going into their project. So, but for urban renewal, that money would not come. Sure. So that is the big misconception. They think that we're using, government money to make these developers rich. And developers are business people, and they go in and they look at a project and they say, I have investors and I need to make a certain return on my investment. If they cannot make that certain return on their investment, they are not going to do the development. So when you're looking at these older parts of town, a lot of times, unless you're like in a really, really popular area where the returns can be really high, like Cherry Creek, if you're somewhere other than Cherry Creek, it doesn't make sense for developers to come in and buy a piece of property that, say, there's a strip center on it. You got to buy that property. You've got to buy out the leases from all the tenants that are in there. You have to relocate those tenants. Then those shopping centers oftentimes have issues. There's like dry cleaning contamination. There might be a gas station there. There's asbestos. So just for a developer to get to a developable piece of land costs them millions and millions of dollars. Then you have to do your development on top of that. So urban renewal was created to help these areas of our community where the private sector won't go into because it just doesn't make financial sense. So we were created to help bridge that financial gap to make sure that these areas of our town don't become blighted and we can go ahead and reinvest in them. So I guess the thing that I really want people to know is that we are not using existing funds. We are using developer investment.
Yeah, that made me think too, like there's a long-term maybe like quality of life benefit for the general public there too. And then also after that 25 years, there's a long-term benefit for the portion of that sales tax, property tax, whatever it is, that then is reinvested in the city and does go back to, the various income tax.
That is a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so like I said, we have 25 years that we work. And so we use that incremental tax and we reinvested it into the project. And then at the end of that 25 years, all that tax goes back to the taxing entities. So all that newfound created tax goes back to the city, it goes to the schools, it goes to the fire district and all that. So I told you we had one urban renewal area that started in 81 and it expired in 06. And so we have all the data and everything for that. And what it shows is that we were able to use that newfound revenue that was generated through our developers and create a lot of sales and property tax. And at the end of that 25 years, those taxing entities saw their revenue increase by 191%. I'm going to say that again.
Yeah.
It grew by 191% by us utilizing and reinvesting that money. And that was not done by raising taxes. No taxes were raised. We were just able to utilize that, put it back into the community, and that was what they saw at the end of the 25 years.
And so these other development areas are just kind of in various stages of that 25-year sort of plan, and they'll maybe one will expire in a few more years. Do we have any ideas yet of maybe where the next development area will be for Aura?
That is great. Now, we are going to be starting here later this year about looking for new areas. And we'll be reaching out to the community, to our elected officials, to all of our partners to say, are there areas of our community that you see that the private sector is not getting involved in? Are they getting run down? Is there a reason why no one is investing in it? And so we will be looking for new areas. So if anybody has any thoughts or ideas, they can always reach out.
Now's the time. All right.
Now's the time.
That's great. Should we move on to the lightning round?
Let's do it.
All right. You want me to take the lead here?
Sure, go for it.
So quick questions just to help folks get to know you a little bit better. So what is your favorite thing about Arvada?
Oh, it's got to be Old Town.
Okay.
I don't know if there's anybody who spends more money in Old Town. I eat out every day. I do all my shopping here. I am a dedicated Old Town person.
Love it. What was your first, last, or best concert?
I think that is probably not the best question to ask me because I'm not a big music person. I am a reader. For instance, I read 64 books last year. So
first, last, or best book?
Yeah. That'd be too hard to ask. That's a good one. Okay. There's just too many.
What brought you to Arvada?
Well, my first experience of ever coming to Arvada was really the Arvada Center. I had a friend that had some tickets, and I went along and loved it. And then I got season tickets. My sister and I came here for years, and then she moved out of town, and my girlfriends and I came. And for a lot of people, I think the Arvada Center is their first introduction. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing place.
Yeah, we had Sarah Kolb, the director of marketing, on as our previous guest,
all
talking
right.
about some of the. She's also on the Arts and Culture Commission, so that was kind of where the crossover was.
Mm-hmm. What was your first job?
I was a dishwasher in an old folks' home.
Oh,
Pretty exciting stuff for 4 years.
That's a new one. We get
Yeah,
a lot
we
of
can't-
lifeguards
yeah,
and
we
some,
can't say about
restaurant
that.
work, but dishwasher.
Yeah, dishwasher. I'm telling you, dishwasher in an old folks' home, there could be some dicey stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Ooh. This might be a hard one, but what has been your favorite project you've done in your time with Aura?
Well, I think that the one I'm probably most proud of right now is the Paseo. That is really amazing. But that the redevelopment of that, all those shopping centers over there, really is what I was hired to do back in 2003, and to have that area come out of the ground and be as mixed use and diverse as it is the thing I'm the most proud of.
That's great. Well, thank you, Mo. Thanks so much for coming on and talking with us today.
Well, thanks for your interest.
Yeah, thank
really
you, Mo.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it. All right, before we let you go, we'll conclude with our news and events segment. And as a reminder, we'd love to hear from our listeners. You can stay in touch by texting us at the link of each show, or you can email us at podcast@arvada.org. We always love hearing feedback about what you enjoy, or perhaps maybe some ideas for future episodes. Again, wanted to mention that the Arvada Reservoir is in need of more volunteers for the upcoming 2025 season. Training is in March for the season that runs April through October, so now is the perfect time to join the Volunteer Ranger program at arvadaco.gov/rangers. Speaking of volunteers, the Majestic View Nature Center is hosting a volunteer open house here coming up on Saturday, March 8th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. You don't need to sign up, you just need to drop by the Nature Center during those hours, and you can learn about the many ways you can get involved over there at the Nature Center.
Yeah, and it's also Resource Central is a partner that we have here at the city that we provide discounts on outdoor water saving programs for our City of Arvada water customers to help save money on their water bills and save water. And so really great programs, Garden in a Box, lawn replacement, and the Slow the Flow sprinkler evaluations are all in a variety of different open areas between joining interest lists or applying for the programs. And so we encourage folks to check those out at resourcecentral.org and sign up for interest lists if you're interested in those programs. And then the city also prints a bi-monthly magazine called the Arvada Report. If you're an Arvada resident, you should get one every 2 months delivered right to your home. And right now there's a survey out asking for some feedback to help make that publication just meet the community needs and what you all are interested in seeing or might want to see improved in that publication. And so that's a really great asset for the city to share information with our community. So we really encourage you to take that survey that we'll link in the show notes. And last but certainly not least, our neighborhood engagement team helps coordinate a neighborhood walk in some of the warmer months of the year. And so the next neighborhood walk, the first one of the year, is going to be Saturday, March 15th from 3 to 5 p.m. And they're going to meet at the Standley Lake Library Trailhead. And really cool this time, they're partnering with Majestic View Nature Center on this walk to have a Audubon master birder to help search for some bald eagles out there. So if that sounds interesting, we encourage you to check out the information that we'll link in the show notes. And thank you again so much to today's guest, Maureen Phair. Really great talking with her about the work that Aura does. Be sure to listen to our next episode with our pavement program manager, Ben Sawaya. And as always, stay in touch with us. You can visit our website, arvadaco.gov/podcast. Subscribe to the show. Send us an email at podcast@arvada.org. We'd love to answer any questions you might have or hear your ideas for future episodes. Thank you to our listeners. Please promote the show, subscribe, rate, and review. And today's podcast was recorded and edited by Arvada Media Services.
And I'll leave you with the fun fact about the Garrison Garden Paseo is a project that Mo referenced that Aura has helped partner with the city on. And this spring there'll be some demonstration gardens there in partnership with the neighboring Arvada gardeners. So right now it might look a little dead or empty there, but there'll be some demonstration gardens there to check out the Garrison Garden Paseo this spring.
Cool.